Hello, friends and clients of Walker Gates Bella. I am Jennifer Walker Gates, immigration attorney. I'm here today with my friend and colleague, Ana Irizarry. Hey, Ana.
Hello.
And Ana is a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist, meaning that she is a counselor, psychotherapist who works with individuals and families to resolve trauma, improve mental health, improve family relationships. And Ana, I'm going to let you explain a little bit better and a little bit more about exactly how you work and what you do. And I think that'll come through as we speak today. What we are going to be addressing today is the topic of domestic violence and both the legal and the psychological consequences of reporting domestic violence versus remaining in domestic violence situations without reporting. We've been doing a series on the Violence Against Women Act and the provisions in the Violence Against Women Act that protect victims of abuse, be they men, women, children, parents of US citizens and lawful permanent residents. And the two main objections that we typically hear from victims are that they don't want to file anything with immigration that could prejudice their spouse or their parent or their child. And they don't want to report to police because they feel that an arrest could be traumatic for the children in the household. So I am going to be speaking about the legal consequences, and Ana, then I'm going to ask you to talk about the psychological consequences and how victims might kind of be able to sort through some of these thorny questions that are very, very difficult and arrive at a place where they feel like they're able to make a decision that is educated and the best decision for themselves and their families. So before we get into all of this, please hit subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are publishing videos every week on topics like this for the immigrant community in Central Texas and around the United States. And we want everyone to remain informed about your rights, about your responsibilities, about benefits and protections that are available to keep you and your family safe and together in the United States. So, gosh, I feel like I've been talking a lot already, but I just want to say very quickly that for an individual who is married to a US citizen or a lawful permanent resident, if you are suffering from abuse, whether that be physical violence or verbal or emotional abuse, reporting that abuse to immigration in the form of requesting VAWA relief has absolutely no consequence to the perpetrator. Immigration is, in some respects, a law enforcement agency, but the domestic violence laws are criminal laws, and immigration does not enforce criminal laws. So filing for VAWA is 100% confidential. No one is going to use someone's VAWA application as a basis to go after an alleged perpetrator. Now, if a victim of violence does report to the police and the police come and arrest a perpetrator of domestic violence, there can be immigration consequences if that person is convicted. But being arrested for domestic violence in no way guarantees that that person will be convicted. And furthermore, there is a criminal liability for parents and caregivers of children who allow them to be subjected to abuse and don't report that abuse. So in some ways, holding the aggressor responsible can remove some criminal liability from the parent who is trying to protect the children. Having the police come and arrest you or arrest a perpetrator is not a magic wand. Ana and I were just talking about this. It's a very, very, very difficult situation for many reasons, with a lot of different variables at play. But if you are in physical danger, or your children are in physical danger, or if your children are having to see abuse and hear abuse and be witness and exposed to abuse, calling the police can create the kind of intervention that can stop that from continuing to happen. And I believe in the long run that taking those kinds of steps to protect oneself, one's own physical safety, as well as the safety of any children, is in the long run going to be the best thing to do in a case where there's domestic violence happening. So Ana, first of all, can you tell us a little bit, since I was so inelegant in my introduction, can you tell us a little bit about what you do, your expertise and experience, and how you help individuals and families?
Yes. And by the way, I thought you explained it clearly, but I will go a bit more. I have worked with children and families for over 30 years. I've worked at nonprofits, I've worked with foster care, and right now I have a private practice where I work with families, and I work a lot with parents around parenting. I also see adults for various reasons, and work with trauma, work with just life situations. When people seek help, it's because they're having some kind of struggle. There is some emotional difficulty going on. And so I help them navigate that, get some light into what's happening, understanding what's happening internally, so that they can take control over what they want to take control in their life. So I'm there to guide, bring out the core and the internal light that the person has, everybody has inside, so that they can really feel better and do what they want to do. So
Wonderful.
that's what I try doing.
And Ana, have you worked with families before and specifically, have you worked with children from families where domestic violence was a problem?
Yeah, it's hard not to. There's a lot of domestic violence. And so it is hard not to encounter that. So yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know that, parents who are not the aggressors do worry a lot about the psychological effects of both the violence and reporting. And so are you able to shed any light at all on kind of what you've seen on both sides of that experience?
Well, I can, domestic violence can be really difficult on children. And sometimes children are just going on around their day and we don't realize, or parents that are also so wrapped up in the abuse and feeling like they have to be walking on eggshells, or they have to be very cautious. They see that their child is struggling in one thing or another, but sometimes might not be connected to the fact that they're also scared and wanting to feel safe. Domestic violence have an array of symptoms in children. It can cause depression, anxiety. Children can be scared. It can cause problems in school. Some children may be aggressive. Some children may shy away and try to isolate. There can be bedwetting. There can be stuttering. There can be a whole array of symptoms that happen because of bedwetting, eating issues. And when domestic violence, sometimes it doesn't happen chronically. Sometimes it could be a period of time when everything is fine, and then suddenly violence erupts. And that unpredictability, it's really hard. And the predictability of it happening every day, it's also hard because it makes it chronic and it makes it ongoing. And it really affects the nervous system, because then the nervous system has to be protecting what's happening. How do I protect myself? How do I protect my mom or my little sibling? And Or how do I run away because I don't want to be here? How can I hide from all of this? Some children try to hide, some children try to protect. Some children just, don't know what to do. So a child could be really, their brain and their nervous system is so wrapped up on keeping safe, then other things go to the wayside. So whether the abuse happens chronically or whether it's once in a while, but it can be severe, there's still this heightened sense of some danger can come. And that keeps other developmental milestones that need to happen, makes it harder for them to happen the way they should, because they're so busy trying to stay safe. So domestic violence is really hard. Witnessing the arrest of a parent can be really hard too. And so, it's not like one thing is better than the other. They're both difficult. And so the question becomes, what is the way that a child you can provide your child the best mental health that you can? And when looking at divorce cases and looking at cases of families with conflict, even if it's not a very physically violent situation, but maybe yelling and just parental conflict, what's been found is that when parents divorce, children actually can relax and they can move on and do better. They can adjust better to things because they're not in that constant state of violence or heightened awareness. They can relax and their nervous system can relax. Is it sad? Yes. Is it hard? Yes. The family is not together. Do they wish their parents were together? Of course. But emotionally, they actually have space to cope and to reach the milestones that they have to, because they're not so worried about all the violence going on predictably or unpredictably.
So removing the child from the violent situation, it sounds like is what's really key for the protection of the child. Removing
the violence, really, that's what's key, because removing the child, parents don't want their child to go live with someone else so that they can keep fighting. Right. So the key is to remove the violence from happening. And for that, parents need to intervene, seeking help. It could be police. It could be they could go to a counseling center and get help in how to manage that or how to remove themselves from the situation, if they're ready or that's what they want, or what kind of interventions can be put in place. But removing the violence and separating the child from the violence, that's
exactly. Now, I do know that sometimes, the law enforcement will become involved if it's suspected that a child is being exposed to abuse, and no one else is intervening on behalf of the child. So again, like I simply want all of our clients and potential clients to just be aware that when you're in a situation that is really, really hard like this, where you and potentially your children are being subjected to abuse, the most important thing is to try to get help, and whether that help comes from law enforcement or it comes from somewhere else, it is really, really important to seek help and not simply tell yourself that it'll get better and keep telling yourself that it'll get better over and over again, because the long-term effects of that on everyone involved can be really devastating.
If I could add one more thing to that, if that's okay. So yes, and one effect, it's important to protect the children. And if there's abuse and one parent is inflicting the abuse and another parent is not protecting the children from that abuse, then both parents can be, can be held accountable for that. So the children do need to be protected, and a parent who takes steps to protect the children from the abuse could get more help and more support, and that's important. The other thing in I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say a lot of times I hear abusers threatening victims with children being taken away if they do report. And the opposite is in fact true. The children are more at risk of being taken away if you don't report than if you do. So
yes,
I think that's an important thing to keep in mind.
And another thing that happens looking, in the long run is that children, when they see the violence going on and on and on, then they learn that the way to solve conflict is through violence. And domestic violence, it's all about power. That's what it's about. The abuser, what they want is power. It's not that they had a drink, and yes, it happens. It can happen more often with alcohol, but you have a lot of alcoholics that are not abusive. So the person that inflicts the abuse, it's making a choice. It's never the victim's fault, even though the abuser wants to make it the victim's fault. It never is. The abuser is the one in control. Even if they seem out of control, they're choosing to do that. And a child sees that and learns that, oh, this is the way to be powerful. It's to inflict pain. It's to be abusive. And when a parent assumes power by protecting the children, then the children learn, oh, this is another way to get power. And it's the protective one. And this is the one I kind of want better. And of course, children can go one way or another, but when they see that there's protection, then they learn a new way of handling conflict and a new way of gaining some control over a situation. That's not just violence.
Yeah, that's so important, Ana. So thank you so much for sharing. And, another reason that I hear victims not wanting to report, not wanting the aggressor to be arrested, is that they may be financially depending on that person to provide food, to provide housing, to pay bills, to, maintain the family. So, we need to have a better network of resources available. But I know that in Central Texas, we do have resources for survivors who are, left without support in the wake of an arrest or a separation. I know that the Safe Alliance provides a lot of that support in Austin, in Travis County, and I know that Williamson County, Bastrop County, Hayes County, all of them also have some resources. Are you familiar with what those resources are, Ana?
I've got a list here. I understand that Safe Alliance just merged with Children's Shelter, and it's now called SAFE.
Yes.
And I do have phone numbers, if that's okay. I can.
Wonderful.
I can share.
And we can, if you will share your list, we can include a link to the list below this video.
Okay. So SAFE has a phone number that you can call, and that's 512-267-SAFE or 7233. They also have a line where you can text, and that is 737-888-7233. And then there's also Texas Advocacy Project, and they have a hotline at 800-374-4673. There's the YWCA, offers a lot of services for women, and that's 512-326-1222. There's the Samaritan Center. It's 512-451-7337, and it has a hotline, 1-800 8273-TALK or 8255. And there's also Austin Child Guidance Center, and their number is 512-451-2242. I worked there for a long time, so
It's a wonderful resource.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
And they all
Yeah.
have websites too, but you know, those are the phone numbers if there's, you know.
Wonderful, thank you. There's
Mhm.
also, there's a domestic violence hotline, which is a
Mhm.
national hotline.
Yeah, I these are just local, but there is a national
Yes,
one. Yeah.
exactly. So for anyone watching who's not in Central Texas, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is something we can also print below this video. And it is staffed 24/7 so that people who need to understand what resources are available in their area are able to call and find that information out from people who are
Mhm.
available on that hotline 24/7. So we will also include that for any viewers who are not directly in Central Texas. And Ana, I want to thank you so much. I know that the work that you do is so important, helping people heal from exactly these kinds of situations. What do you see in your practice in, you know, people who have grown up in situations and their capacity for healing, the kinds of struggles that they deal with? Can you share something with us to give us a little hope as we wrap
Mhm.
up the video?
Yeah. Well, there's always hope. You know, there's always things can get better, but they usually don't get better on their own. You know, you need to seek help. You get a better chance. You know,
Yeah.
there are ways that if a perpetrator recognizes what they do and they honestly and genuinely want to change, there's treatment for that. You know, there's treatment. They can seek it out. Oftentimes, perpetrators do not seek treatment. And so the victims need to get their help for themselves, because adults do suffer trauma from their childhood. You know, and many persons that are involved in domestic violence as a victim, they lived through that when they were children. And they learn, oh, this is the way life is. And then they find themselves in that, even though they don't want to. And part of that is because that's what they know. And we're trying to break that cycle.
Yeah.
And it could be really hard. And then you learn, well, I did this, I grew up, I'm okay. Well, there are always things that can be hard, and help is there. And there's a lot of different kinds of treatment to help with trauma that people can move on. The trauma, the memory that creates in our mind, in our system, trauma creates some memories. But there's the psychological memory. They're not necessarily the event memory. And those psychological memories can be healed. And yes, there is a lot of people out there who want to help and do help. And so there's no reason to go it alone. You know,
Yeah.
being a victim of domestic violence, it's a lonely thing. Sometimes people are too ashamed to even share that what's going on. And
Oh, yeah.
there's no need for that. There is help. And too many people have gone through that to make a wealth of knowledge of how to help people get past it.
Absolutely. No shame. You know, I also, you know, I went through relationships in my past that were violent. It happens to so many women and so many men as well. That's another thing that we've been talking about in this series on VAWA, is that we do have clients who are men, and a lot of times because of the cultural expectations that men will remain in control of an entire household of people, which is absurd. Like, you can't control other people really, unless you're violent, right? But you know, the additional cultural factors that come into play in cases with men make it even harder sometimes for them to reach out and get help. But we've been trying to get the message out there that this does happen with men, with women, with parents, with children, in all kinds of different relationships. And doesn't matter who's perpetrating the violence, it's always wrong. And the best thing is always to seek help if you possibly can, if it's safe to do so, and not to let any fear or shame get in the way of getting the help that you need.
Yeah, there is help out there, and domestic violence reaches all socioeconomic levels,
Right.
or levels of education, ethnicity, race, location. It doesn't discriminate. It goes everywhere. It's just about one person wanting to exercise power and control over another. That's what it's about.
Well, Ana, thank you so much. What is your website? Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you for help with?
It's my name, Ana, A-N-A, Irizarry, Irizarry, LPC, for licensed professional counselor, .com.
Beautiful. Well, we will include a link to your website under this video too. Yes. And anyone who needs help with a VAWA case or any other kind of immigration matter, please reach out to us. You can find me and my team at walkergatesvela.com. There's a button where you can schedule an appointment directly on our website, or call us and one of our staff will help get you scheduled. So please do not suffer in silence. If you have any questions about whether you might qualify for some benefit under the Violence Against Women Act or another immigration benefit, please let us know, and we'll be happy to help you figure that out. So again, Ana, I really appreciate your time so much. It's so valuable, and I will look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you.